Hey folks, how's everybody doing? I genuinely want to know. Let me know in the comments. Please bear with me here as I aim to get better at sharing whatever gifts that I've been given. And today I want to talk about one very simple little life hack, something that's helped me get through the toughest times and something that just works time and time again for me. So some of you may or may not know, I kind of got a little wild in my adolescence, maybe down the wrong path. And I'm kind of talking about the time between age 14 and 17. And then I was blessed enough to find myself at a place to regather my being when I moved upstate New York. And what was interesting was I made the choice to go down a better path, and I moved upstate. And I talked about, or I thought about taking accountability for my life and making better choices, which is its whole own discussion. Choices and accountability, and not playing the blame game or beating myself up, but just simply making a choice to do better in my life. And what I noticed was, even though I wanted to do better, I still had a pattern of making bad choices. That's kind of how I got in the bad situation to begin with. And so the question is, how do you improve your life when you make bad choices? And what I realized at that time, I went through a little process kind of along the lines of, what would Jesus do, right? Now, religion, again, that's a whole other discussion. I'll save that for another video. But those bracelets were kind of popular at the time. What would Jesus do? So I basically asked myself, what would people who I respected, or what would people who I look up to, what would they do? Right? So in the back of my mind, I would say, what would my mom do? Or what would my mom think about my decisions? What would my father think? What would my grandparents think? What would my sensei think? And then I had a whole list of people who I kind of looked up to, champion athletes. What would Muhammad Ali do? As I cultivated my warrior spirit, I would ask, what would a Navy SEAL do? What would Special Forces operative do? And I kind of had this whole list of, what would they do? And of course, as I cultivated my spirit, again, religion is a whole other discussion, but the Jesus figure that we look up to in modern Western society, what would Jesus do? I'd ask myself, what would the Buddha do? And this line of thinking, it enabled me to tap into the wisdom of others, basically. And it also enabled me, in hindsight, it enabled me to think before I act, right? So rather than simply being reactionary, I started thinking about my actions before I did them. And I was able to take that split second to make better choices and tap into my higher self. And again, what I didn't quite realize at the time was I was actually just developing some self-awareness, right? So now I could ask myself, what would my higher self do versus my lower desires and impulses? So if you're struggling, if you're feeling a little lost, if you're looking for some answers, I recommend this for you. And also what's happening is we start developing our brain in terms of, we have mirror neurons. You could actually watch somebody else doing something successfully, and your brain will actually pick up on that and start wiring your own brain for success. So, if you want to be a master chef, ask yourself, what would a master chef do? They're probably studying. They're probably in the kitchen. They're probably, getting in touch with the ingredients. If you want to be a master martial artist, I would ask myself, what would Bruce Lee do right now? Well, he's probably training. He'd probably choose to center himself and start training. And the list goes down the line. So, with this, it's something that I personally do, that I encourage others to do. I personally like to study champions. There's a lot of sports. I actually was not into sports at all. I like martial arts. I like skydiving. But sports never made sense to me. It was always a big distraction. I was very politically motivated as an activist and caring for humanity. And I actually didn't appreciate sports most of my life. I like biking, playing ball with my dad, whatever. But something that I do now, which I highly encourage for everybody, is I study champions. I have a lot of respect for champions in any field. Even if the sport doesn't quite interest me, I watch what the champions do, what the winners do. And there's a big difference between first and second place. But by watching, by observing, you're able to learn. So I encourage you, if you're feeling stuck, if you're feeling like, hey, I don't, one of the worst things I'm seeing as the world's turning right now and everyone's going through a lot, one thing that you don't want to do is be stuck. And that feeling of being stuck is, such an oppressive feeling. So I encourage you to get unstuck. And one of the ways to get unstuck is, again, ask yourself, what would somebody that you admire, what would somebody that you look up to, what would somebody that you want to be, what would they do? Another thing, I got in the habit of asking my future self, what would my future self do right now? The person that I want to be, what would they do now in this moment? And as we start thinking along these lines, we rewire our brains and we start becoming. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Let me know in the comments your experiences, any questions. I'm going to try to keep up the sharing and as we walk this path together. Love you all. Peace.